The Inanna myth is a death and resurrection myth. It's about initiation and transformation and about encountering yourself at your most raw, suffering, and how useless many of the things we think are important really are. In it, we're asked some of the same questions asked in the stories about Jesus and Mohammed, peace be unto him. What is our place in relationship with the powers we do not control? What powers do I have? What powers do I think I have that are not actually important or relevant? Inanna comes face to face with herself, face to face with her raw, unadorned, vulnerable self, as do we in these times of transformation and initiation, as we do when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death. In this myth, we explore what powers are transient and what powers are enduring. When you go through the hard times, through suffering, through the valley of the shadow, you are stripped of your pride, your position, your privilege. You are stripped of your power. Inanna gave up one item at each gate, 7 gates, and then she arrives. No more proud Lady Bountiful, not the queen of heaven and earth, wearing none of her finery, none of her awards and prizes and badges of honor and armor. She is stripped down to her essence, her vulnerable self. No pretense, no bluster, no unearned privilege. She is, and we all are in these times, just our raw selves, where sometimes just breathing has to be enough because that's all we can do. You know, Inanna chose her descent. Persephone, on the other hand, was abducted. And I usually emphasize the Inanna myth because I'm pro-consent culture. Consent culture. However, this is not the time to let my white lady niceness make me too squeamish to acknowledge that sometimes we don't have control. Sometimes we are kidnapped into our suffering and have to make choices out of the impossible. Yes, sometimes there's chosen suffering, working out before an athletic competition, going for a challenging academic degree, choosing to add an animal to your family, even though you know you will probably outlive them. Sometimes there's unchosen suffering, cancer, natural disasters, systemic inequality, racism, oppression, pandemic. Inanna is perhaps the patron deity of chosen suffering, and Persephone the patron deity of unchosen suffering. So, looking back on your life, when have you been on an Inanna journey or a Persephone journey? I'll share one of mine. 7 months in 2011, a period of time when I felt like I was standing on this blustery hill while I was hit from one side and then from the other with blows that took me to my knees. The first gate, Grandma's death. The grandma who I called my ginger cookie grandma. The person who always had a smile and a hug for me, even as she approached 100. What is this? The universe answered, the rules of life cannot be changed. Second gate, the end of a 16-year marriage to a woman I created a loving home with and had many joyful adventures with. Again, I asked, what is this? The rules of love cannot be changed. The third gate, a joyful milestone, but even joyful events can be losses. I graduated from Meadville Lombard Theological School. It was the completion of a 6-year journey. Fourth gate, Mom's cancer diagnosis. I asked again, what is this? And the universe answered, we cannot count on tomorrow. The fifth gate was the near loss of my own eyesight. I discovered a medical condition that would have blinded me if I hadn't sought treatment and gotten medication and surgery. What is this? I asked again, encountering my own vulnerability. The sixth gate was the end of my internship at the UU congregation in Garden City, Long Island. With no clear next job in sight, I was embarking on the adventure I had chosen 7 years earlier. The seventh gate was downsizing my possessions so they fit into a 10 by 10 by 10 foot container and moving across the country. Throughout it all, corporeal reality mimicked spiritual and emotional loss. I lost 10 dress sizes. Remember the Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons? Remember how he would constantly be running off of a cliff, and then there was that moment before he finally realized he had left the ground. It wasn't until he looked down and realized he'd gone beyond, and then whoomp, down he went. At the end of those months, I was hanging in the air, fully off the cliff, with no idea about how I could get back onto solid ground. In tarot cards, every card is full of symbolism and meaning. Each card evokes myth and spiritual insight. The first card of the deck is the Fool card, and that card shows a youth who has little or nothing to their name, with one foot off the cliff, just like Wile E. Coyote. This is the image of the first phase of the divine journey of transformation, the journey of initiation through loss or suffering. We are all in that card right now. 2020 has pushed us to the edge of the cliff, and we have a choice. We can stay in denial, suspended and unmoving, even reaching for the past, or we can accept the whomp, the blows that bring us to our knees. Accept that the old life is no more. Find our new ground, maybe a little suddenly, and then move forward. Since that time, I've been using a mantra, and my mantra is, I'm gonna fall forward. And often now I switch it up with, I'm gonna fail forward. Scary stuff, right? But here's the secret. Inanna did two things before she set out on her journey. Sure, she grabbed all the tools and resources she thought she'd need, and sure, none of them, not one single one of them, ended up being of use to her, but she did something else. She asked for help.